So my mom texted me last week and said, Lauren, why haven't you done an episode on, okay, you're in the ashes. Now what? And I sat with that text for a minute because she was right. And I was a little embarrassed that she had to point it out to me because I have spent years now building a framework that names the territory. And I've gotten really good at telling you what state you're in and what your body needs when you're in that state and explaining why your nervous system is doing what it's doing. I've gotten really good at being able to give people language for an experience that no one else is naming for them. I apparently have not been as good at telling you what to do once you have that language. This is The Spiral with Lauren Toby, the science of stress, burnout, identity, and why you feel the way you feel. This is for the woman who's done everything right and still doesn't feel like herself. Here, we finally figure out why. Welcome to the podcast. So my mom called me out politely, the way moms do. And so today we're fixing that. Last week, I told you about the machine and the two databases. We talked about the fact that your nervous system is a pattern matcher and that all it does, its only job, is to pull from your threat database or your safety database and make a determination about what you need in that moment based on patterns it's found in your past. And when you've gone through a complex trauma situation or an abusive situation, then your threat database is overwhelmingly overflowing with information. But your safety database is basically empty. And the machine is what runs you when threat is winning the match every single time. If you miss that one, go listen to it because it will make a lot more sense after you listen to that than I can sum up in like 10 minutes right here. So this week, what I want to follow up with that on is what the filing actually is and what can count as a safety deposit and what doesn't count as a safety deposit. And why the way you've been trying to file probably hasn't been working for you. And what you can do today while you're listening to this podcast in your actual body that's small enough to actually land and make a difference. Because if all I do is leave you with a concept, with a framework, with this intellectualization, I'm doing exactly opposite of what I'm telling you your body is doing. Your logical brain doesn't get to run the show. So if I'm not giving you a way to take and treat and care for your nervous system, then when things get rough, your logical brain's going to go offline and none of it's going to make sense anymore. So inadvertently, on accident, I've been doing exactly what I get upset about the wellness industry doing, which is handing you a thing to think about and just call it healing. So we're going to stop that today, right now. So I want to do a really brief recap of what we talked about last week. And like I said, I really suggest if you didn't hear that episode, you go back and listen to it because it really talks about the mechanics of how your nervous system works and how the pattern matching works. And so to kind of sum it up in like a 30,000 foot view, your nervous system is a pattern matching machine, and that is its only job. It logs experiences you have throughout your life, and then when a new experience happens, it goes back to that database and it finds a similar experience where something similar has happened, and it brings forth whatever the response was in that situation that maybe kept you safe, made things okay, made things comfortable, whatever that was for you. So essentially, your nervous system is always a body acts first, mind narrates it later, because your nervous system is the operating system of your entire body. Your brain is like the intern in a corporate situation, right? When things are good, when things are flowing, the intern gets a say. The intern gets to, get their feet wet and do different projects. But in a moment of crisis, the intern has no say in how the company is going to solve that crisis, manage that crisis, and communicate out what they need to communicate for crisis management. And your body works the same way. So when you're in a period of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, something like that, your nervous system is not going to let the intern take over. The nervous system is going to do crisis management and figure out what's happening and solve the crisis all by itself, because it's the one that knows you and your body and your world better than anything else. So since you were born, your body has been logging information in either your threat database or your safety database. And those are databases that tell your system, is this situation safe for me or is it a threat to me? And if it's a threat, how do I need to react to minimize that threat risk? And so if that is fawning, if that's making yourself smaller, not answering your reality or your truth, whatever that is that's going to make that threat less of a risk. And then on the counter side, your safety database is all of those times you reacted in a positive manner or you reacted in true concert with your own personal voice and nothing bad happened. Maybe something good happened. Maybe nothing bad happened. And that is safety as well. If you're expecting the other shoe to drop and it doesn't, that can log into your safety database. So when you have a new experience, your nervous system has to find the quickest and most reliable match to what's happening. So when your threat database is overflowingly full, it's going to be a lot easier for it to find a pattern within that threat database. And that's the machine. That's that automatic, I'm fine, I've got this, I don't need anyone. Those responses that are coming before your brain ever has a chance to acknowledge it. And that's when that threat database wins every single time. So the work is about creating a capacity where your voice, which runs the safety database, can beat out the machine, can get there faster than the machine can get there. So like me, like all of us, this has probably already happened to you this week, and it's only Tuesday. You've caught yourself either mid-sentence or post-sentence saying, I'm fine, I got this, absolutely I can handle this, when really your body is screaming, actually I'm not fine, I don't have the capacity to handle this, and I do not have the time to make this work. What we didn't talk about last week is how that filing system in the threat and safety databases actually work and what that feels like. What counts as a deposit? When most women hear about filing safety points for the first time, they almost always try to do the same thing they've done every other time in their life, right? They make a plan. They schedule self-care. I'm going to take a hot bubble bath. I'm going to do a gratitude journal. I'm going to book a spa day, right? And they tell their partner, I need more support, but don't know how to really convey that. Or, they're going to drink more water today. Whatever that ends up looking like, it's a scheduled pattern of self-care with a checklist that can be achieved. And then they do it and they wait to feel safer. They wait for those moments of comfort and the feeling doesn't come. So then they decide, well, I did it wrong, or this works for everyone but me. So clearly I'm the one that's broken. And maybe this whole spiral thing is bullshit. Who knows, right? But the truth is, and what I want people to understand so deeply is filing a real safety point does not feel like safety. It feels like confusion. It doesn't feel like finally this warm hug is wrapping around you. It feels conflicting and wrong in so many senses. And that's because your body has been weighing the consequences of speaking up and using your voice for so many years. And in doing that, it's determined that your voice doesn't matter, that what you're doing isn't that important. And someone else's opinion, keeping the room calm and safe, is what matters the most. So you have this old ingrained training, whether it's from your childhood, a relationship, a marriage, a workplace, where you have learned that speak up, you're going to get punished. Ask for help, you're going to get withdrawal. Say no, and you're going to get the cold shoulder. right? If you do what your body actually needs you to do, there will be consequences. So when that woman actually finally does the thing and the consequence doesn't come, the body doesn't automatically celebrate and go, yay, safety, right? It sits and waits. And it's trying to find that negative reaction, that negative consequence, those things that are bound to come up and bite you in the butt, right? And it's scanning the room. It's waiting for that other shoe to drop. And that waiting is confusing. And you're waiting to feel like you failed, but failure isn't coming. That is your deposit landing in the bank. That confusion is the recording. Because when your body for so long has logged the feeling of chaos and consequence as normal, having a moment where your voice was heard and accepted is not normal. And so your body doesn't know what to do with that. It doesn't know where to put that deposit. So I've talked about my kind of retreat moment, my first safety moment where I really was like, oh, nothing happened. And that's a good thing moment. And I've talked about it several times on the podcast and it's in the book, but we were at a retreat at our CEO's house and there was something that we had decided at the previous retreat we were no longer doing. It didn't serve the agency. It was actually creating negative backlash on our employees' time and on their attention. And so we were just going to scrap this program. Well, we got to this retreat a quarter later, and all of a sudden she was talking about the progress of this program and what we were going to do and all these people we were going to connect with. And I was sitting there in this moment thinking, we scrapped this program. Like everyone in this room was there. But in the past, I wanted to make the CEO so comfortable. I worked with her directly. I reported to her directly. I would have just gone with the conversation and let it flow and been like, yes, yeah, we should definitely talk to these people. I'll get it on the calendar. We'll do these things. But sitting there in that moment, I was like, no, like that's not what happened. I know my reality, and my reality is that we were at this last quarterly retreat and we scrapped this program. So before I could talk myself out of it, I caught that and I said, I think there may be some confusion here because at the last retreat, we thought we scrapped that program. And then I just sat there and waited. And I was waiting for the snappy voice and getting called out and told that I didn't know what I was talking about and to sit down. And that never came. My colleagues spoke up and agreed with me, and there was room, the space in the room for us to all sit there and have a conversation about where the disconnect was between the last retreat and this retreat. And my body had to log that somewhere, but it wasn't a threat anymore because the threat, the consequence, none of that ever actually came to fruition. So it got to log that moment as a moment of safety, of feeling like my voice beat out the pattern matching machine and said what I truly felt, and nothing bad happened. And that was a safety moment. Now, my threat database is overflowing, right, with thousands and thousands and thousands of patterns. My safety database now had one. So it doesn't change your life immediately. You don't get to all of a sudden like, oh, that worked. I can use my voice all the time now, right? You've got to build up those moments of safety. But that's how it starts, is that one single moment at a time. So the rule I want you to write down or screenshot or voice note to yourself or however you do things is if you do something hard and feel a wave of relief afterwards, that's probably the machine resetting. That's not a deposit. If you do something hard and feel weirdly confused, like you're waiting for the room to shift or turn or go upside down, that's probably a deposit. And it sounds so backwards, but it's so true. The relief feeling is the machine going, okay, good. We survived, back to baseline. We can run these same scripts tomorrow and achieve the same thing. The confusion is your body saying, wait, that wasn't supposed to work. Run it again. Are we safe? Are we sure? Like, what is happening? Maybe we should file this anomaly until further data is concluded, right? The anomaly is the file going into that cabinet. And that is the whole thing. That's the whole work, is having that capacity to create those safety moments for yourself by creating that enough capacity that your voice beats out the machine. And a lot of us have been measuring this wrong our entire lives, right? We've been doing the brave things and waiting to feel proud or relieved. And then when we feel confused, we think we did it wrong. But we did it exactly right. The confusion is the proof. And I like to equate it to when I first met my husband, Scott, and we first started dating and kind of having some experiences together. I almost cut it off because it felt boring. It felt like, everything just was there. It was working. There were no sparks, right? We're taught when you fall in love, there's sparks and there's fireworks and your stomach flips upside down. But when we think about it, that's all threat response. That is all your body recording chaos because chaos is what feels normal. So when we're in a healthy place, when we're in a healthy relationship or in a healthy environment, it's going to feel boring because you're not having those visceral reactions. And that boring is the healthiest thing you can have. So when we met and I was like, there's nothing here, but I feel comfortable, I feel safe, but where are the sparks? That was proof that this was a good relationship and this is where I should be. And that sounds so counterintuitive to what we're taught our entire lives. And so when we talk about what we file and what gets to be filed, not everything does. Not everything is a data point, but a lot of it is. So really 3 things need to be true for an experience to get to register as a data point in your safe database. Criterion 1 is it had to contradict an old rule. So filing only happens when the body encounters evidence that the old survival training was wrong. So doing things that fit inside the old rules, even good things, productive things, self-care checklist things, that doesn't file new data because it confirms what's already there. So if it fits within your current data scheme, it doesn't get to count as a new data point. So the woman who learned that she had to earn love by being useful, right? Going to a yoga class is not filing safety because she's still performing that usefulness just in a different room. She's showing up where she's supposed to show up, where she's told is the place for her to experience this thing. That's all still a performance, and the body's still recognizing that we're doing what we're supposed to do. We're doing what we've been told to do. But now, if that same woman has a situation and lets someone hold her while she's crying about it, she's not performing, she's not apologizing for it, she's not trying to rush to be okay, she's able to sit there and experience those feelings and those emotions in that moment. And that contradicts the rule that she has to be strong, that she has to perform. That files. That's a data point. That is a safety moment where she's able to say, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, what I was performative, and everything worked out okay. And I've seen this play out in my own life so many times. And where I usually see it the most is when Scott and I get in a disagreement, right? We get in a fight, we're arguing about something. Usually it ends up being nonsensical, but we have real fights too. And I feel myself pushing him away. I feel myself saying, if you don't like this, just leave, just go. And that's my body because The safe thing is for me to perform strength and show that I don't need him to stick around for me to be okay. But when I'm able to catch that and actually break down and say, this is why it's hurting me, that's a safety data point, because that's not me performing strength, performing okayness, performing a situation where I'm not okay. It's me being able to cut that mask, get rid of that costume, and say, I'm not okay, and this is why. And when he is able to respond positively to that and not punish me, not scream at me, not call me names, that's a safety data point in my database every single time. So that leads into criteria 2, which is that the body has to actually experience it as survivable. Okay, you can't think your way through it. You can't logically say, I'm in safety in this moment. It's a safe place, so I'm okay, right? That's never going to get you a safety point, because that's your logical intern brain trying to take over crisis mode, and that's not going to happen. So if you were going through a hard conversation and you felt like you had to white knuckle your way through it while you were honestly dissociating from the entire experience, your body wasn't there, you were just going with the motions, that's not a deposit. That's you continuing in the same pattern matching functions. And this is why you can't fake this work. You can't check it off a checklist and post it on Instagram. It's so much deeper than that, because your body knows the difference between you were here and survived and you went you went somewhere else while it happened, right? So if you went somewhere else while it happened so that you could be okay by not processing it, that's not a safety point. That's how your body has learned to deal with threat. But if you were able to be present in the moment and understand that this is a hard conversation, but it's one we need to have, and then nothing bad happens afterwards, or even if something happens that you don't consider good, right? The person gets mad at you, the person storms off, they react however they react. But it's you being able to be in that moment and say, I said my truth, and this says more about their emotional development process than mine, if they weren't able to hold space for this hard conversation. And that kind of like cognitive work is something that is really hard to deal with. It's really hard because it makes you so vulnerable. And I heard someone today, I was talking to them on their podcast, and they phrased it like, a baby, when you go to change their diaper and you take their clothes off, they start screaming. They feel so vulnerable. They feel the cold air on their skin. They feel, they don't have that swaddle, that tightness. And so that's scary to them. And they don't know what to do, and they don't know how to function. And that's the same way for us when we're first starting to learn that our nervous system has a pattern, and it's our job to interrupt that pattern. It feels vulnerable and scary and not safe, but that's the exact thing that's going to create your moments of safety in and of itself. So if you had dissociated and you weren't even in that moment, that lack of safety and that vulnerability didn't create a safety moment for you. You have to feel almost unsafe to realize that that is safety, because your body has learned to adapt to know that lack of safety is a norm, and it wants to pattern match to the norm. So when you feel uncomfortable and open and vulnerable, that's actually your body starting to do the work. So then we jump into criteria 3, which is that it has to be sized differently than your current capacity. And this is where most people blow it. So hear me out. Okay, you learned to make big moves because that's how you were taught to be impressive, to people please, to always be on and high functioning and high achieving, right? So when you find a place and you're in that moment of ashes and you're like, I need to change something. I need to find my ember. I need to find my spark. So I'll quit the job and I'll leave him and I'll cut off my mom and I'll do the dramatic thing, because we've always been taught that that big move is achievement. That dramatic move, though, is almost always too big for your current capacity. So you either can't follow through on it, or you do it and it causes a massive collapse afterwards, which is where I was when I first created the fireball that ended my marriage. Is that I went so hard on this thing, I had no capacity to survive, that then my entire nervous system completely collapsed for months afterwards because I had overridden the capacity that I had. Filing these safety points is not going to be dramatic. It is a 1% anomaly. It's small. It's those moments. You're not building a new life on day one. You're building a new folder inside the system. And that's the assignment. So when I talk about this, when I talk about the work of the ashes, I really see people, women, push back on this internally, right? Because it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything, right? Everyone's out there selling you this 5-step program, this 6-step program, this journey to healing, all of these things. But what your nervous system really needs are these 1% anomalies. And so I've had women say, how am I going to get better if I'm just sitting here seeing things, like feeling things, right? That's not an achievement. That's not a process. They want to be active in the process. But that activity in the process is what's gotten us here in the first place. So being able to honor what your body needs at the time, which when you're in the ashes is those moments of safety, those moments of felt safety, those moments of actual safety, that you can sit and file and give your body enough extra information in that safety database that your voice comes back out. And every time you go through this, every time you hit the ashes, it's gonna get faster. It's gonna get quicker. You're gonna get better at it. But in those early ashes, when it feels so deep and so heavy and there's numbness and there's emptiness and you haven't felt joy since as long as you can remember, that moment of just accepting that you need to give your body time doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel safe. And trust me, I would sell a lot more things if I could say, when you're in the ashes, do X, Y, Z, and you'll be achieved. Say affirmation 1, 2, 3, and you'll hit an ember. Say this, 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 and you're going to whatever. But that's not the way the body works. Your body doesn't work on a timeline or a checklist or, a pretty Instagram-worthy quote. Your body works on actual moments of safety, and you can't create those through your logical mind. You can't say, okay, I'm in a safe situation, file it, log it, let's move on, right? Your brain works that way, but your nervous system doesn't. And your nervous system is the one that has to do the filing. So it's noticing and having enough capacity to stop the machine from saying, I'm fine, and let your voice say, actually, I'm struggling today. And that is the entire work of the ashes. And like I said, it's not sexy. It's not going to sell, $497 miracle programs, but it's what your body actually needs in that moment. And that probably feels uncomfortable too, because that is your body logging the fact that this is what you need. And it's different from what everyone else has been telling you to do. So performing that safety doesn't count. If you're saying you're fine and you post the gratitude reels and you do the routines you're supposed to do and you follow the $497 miracle course, your body still knows you're performing it. You're not fooling your body. You may be fooling your brain and everyone on the outside, but you're not fooling your body. Forcing yourself through something you aren't ready for isn't going to count. It's not going to get logged in the database. The story you tell yourself about how brave you were is just the machine producing another script about the performance of high achievement and I'm fineness. And another thing I want you to hear is that, the one-time grand big gestures do not count any more than the daily small deposits that you make. So the person who goes on the big life-altering, changing retreat and expects to be different is doing the same thing she's done her whole life, which is solve a chronic problem with an acute solution. The nervous system files in inventory, not in events. 20 small folders beats one big folder every single time. Capacity isn't a feeling. It's an inventory. You don't need to feel more capable. You have to have more files to reach that capability. That's the whole game. So I want to leave you with something, like I said at the beginning, that you can use tonight, today, in your day-to-day life to help facilitate your ashes, right? Because I don't want you to wallow in them. When I say give your body what it needs, I want you to be so clear about the fact that that doesn't mean just be okay with being where you are. Because now that you've identified I'm in the ashes, you're not okay staying there. And that is so important because giving your body what it needs doesn't mean feeding the machine. So move one is stop trying to make dramatic moves, right? Stop it. Start looking for those 1% contradictions. So today, this week, this hour, right? What is one tiny thing that would contradict an old rule? And we're not looking for the heroic version or, the big grand gesture. We're looking for the smallest possible version of something that can contradict an old rule. This could be a text that normally you would pre-edit and read 2 or 3 or 4 times. Just press send. Type what you need to type and press send without editing. That's a 1% anomaly. And when the answer comes back and it's not destroying you or destroying your whole life, that will log and file as a safety moment, right? That opinion that usually you would swallow, say it, right? I'm on a group chat with all of my cousins and now their kids. But there's a lot that goes on in that group chat that for so long I just let sit because I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to do, anything that would make anyone honestly notice me because I was scared to be noticed. But when I start feeling that coming back up, I say the thing. Not in a contradictory way, not in a combative way, but I just say what I feel. And 9 times out of 10, it sits there and it's fine. Sometimes someone will fight back. But again, I was able to say that thing without editing myself. And now I'm able to take in that feedback in a more sustainable way. These things are so small that they don't feel like anything at all. And that is the right size. Okay, so that's move 1. Move 2 is after you do the thing, do not check whether it worked. Don't type the text message and send it and then go back and read it 4 more times and figure out if you need to put something else in the next text message to counteract or cushion what you sent in the first text message. No. Once you do the thing, do not check whether it worked because this is where you undo your own deposits. You feel that small thing and you immediately start scanning your body for evidence and clues and start the shame spiral of, oh, I said that and I'm a horrible person because I didn't think this, right? You feel that confusion that we've determined is part of the safety feeling, but doesn't feel good. And we've decided that that confusion means it didn't work and we dismiss it. The deposit is going to land whether you measure it or not. Your job is not to check back and see if it worked, see if it was a safe thing, see if it changed your life. Your job is to just do the next small thing. Do the next thing. Capacity isn't built by doing one thing and then reflecting on it for weeks at a time. Capacity is built by stacking those small things on top of each other. And not every one of them will hit as a moment of safety. Not every one of them will come off clean and crystal clear. And some of them may still end up creating a threat response database. But as you stack them on top of each other over and over and over, it fills that safety database. That 1% anomaly becomes a 2% anomaly, which becomes a 3% anomaly. And it adds. So just do the next right thing. And that's all you can do. And then you move into move 3, which is when that confusion shows up. Name it. Don't fight it. Okay? We're not shoving it under the rug. We're not pretending it doesn't exist. We're able to name it out loud to nobody, right? Just to the car or to your dog, right? That was a deposit. My body is super confused right now because it expected punishment that never came. This confusion is a recording. My body is learning. This is going to close the gap between your inside and your outside because your internal experience now gets its own language. And by speaking it out loud, your brain is hearing it. And now your nervous system is creating capacity in your brain, and your brain is recognizing what your nervous system has been saying this whole time. So your system starts to trust that you know what you're doing and you know what's happening. And that's the work. These are the 3 moves you can make while you're in the ashes that will help start developing your sense of safety, your sense of purpose. And it's in creating these tiny moments of safety that the embers will spark, that you will see that first crack of, this isn't how I want to live. This isn't how I want to do things. And that's when you get to first see and grasp those ember moments, which can be both so clarifying and so terrifying at the same time. But it's in creating these micro moments of safety for yourself that those embers get to start showing up. So often this work is hard to do alone, especially when you're in the ashes and your capacity is already at 0. And so that's why I ended up building Nova inside of the Spiral app. It wasn't because I wanted to add AI to my business so I looked cool and up to date and modern, right? It was because the women I was working with kept telling me they would catch the machine speaking and they wanted to file it as a deposit, and yet they didn't know what to do next. Their therapist's office was closed. Their partner didn't understand. Their mom would have made it worse somehow. And they didn't have the capacity to be able to figure out that safety moment themselves and what counted as a deposit. Nova is that filing tool. She helps you identify the moment, the size of the move, recognize the deposit when it lands. She's there in those 2 a.m. moments where you think, I shouldn't have sent that text. Now I'm regretting it. And you start spiraling into shame. She's there to help you see that that is a moment you created and that is a deposit into your safety database. Nova has learned from me and she learns from you as you go through the Spiral app and you do the courses and you do the journeys and you journal and you introspect. All of that is teaching her who you are and how you navigate your ashes, your spiral. And so she's there for you when a human just isn't available. And then you can add the human support, and I will be there. When everything turns back on in the light of day, you can reach out to me and I can help you through that. Nova's there to kind of bridge the gap between I'm alone and I don't know what to do, and I have someone to support me. So, my mom asked the question, and we have answered it. If you're in the ashes, the work is not to claw your way out. The work is not to feel better in the moment or be productive or force your system to be grateful for the grass, right? The work is to file 1 folder a day. one contradiction, one small thing that doesn't fit the old rules. And let your body be confused when the consequence doesn't come and you're sitting in that confusion of that deposit landing in the other database, in the safety database. The ashes is not where you're going to build your new life. The ashes are where you're building your inventory to know that a new life is possible. And eventually, that inventory adds up and you're able to take all of those lessons learned and build a life. That's the whole thing, right? I'm super excited about Thursday, so I will see you then. This episode may be over, but our time together doesn't have to be. If this episode found you at the right time, share it with the woman you thought of while listening. That's how she finds it. And don't forget to follow and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. For the book, the community, and more, visit laurentoby.com/connect.